After his final victories in Gaul and a civil war that brought him to Rome as the dominant figure, Caesar accumulated honors that blurred the line between magistrate and monarch. He was named Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. Statues rose in his image. His authority overshadowed the Senate. And for many Romans, this was precisely what the Republic had been designed to prevent. On the Ides of March, a group of senators formed a conspiracy to stop him. Among them were men Caesar trusted, including Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus. They met not in the traditional Senate house, but in a temporary meeting space within the theater of Pompey. And there, surrounded by senators, Caesar was attacked. Daggers were drawn. He was stabbed repeatedly, more than 20 times. Ancient sources differ on his final words, but later tradition gives us the famous line, "Et tu, Brute?" You too, Brutus? This phrase captures the meaning of the moment. Betrayal, not just by enemies, but by allies. The conspirators believed they were restoring the Republic, but instead they unleashed chaos. In the months that followed, Rome did not return to balance. Civil war reignited. And then, during public games held in Caesar's honor, a comet appeared in the sky, visible even in daylight for several days. The Roman people read it as a sign. Caesar's soul had ascended to the heavens. This Julian star, the Sidus Julium, became the visual proof of his divinity. Soon after, the Senate formally declared him Divus Julius, a god. This moment was not only recorded, it was made visible. Coins issued under Augustus depict a radiant star, often with a trailing tail, the Julian star. These small objects, passed from hand to hand across the empire, transformed a celestial event into a political message. In Roman culture, coins were more than currency. They were communication. By placing the star above Caesar's image, Augustus made a claim that every citizen could see and hold, that Caesar had ascended, and that his authority now belonged to the heavens. This transformation did not remain symbolic. It was built into the city itself. In the Roman Forum, the Temple of Caesar was constructed on the very site of Caesar's cremation and dedicated in 29 BCE. Here, architecture gives permanence to belief. What had been a moment, a death, a comet, a memory, became a place. The temple stood not only as a monument, but as a statement. The place where Caesar's body was burned became a place of worship. The Republic, once defined by resistance to kings, now stood at the center of something entirely new. A system in which power could rise beyond the human and be anchored in the divine. And this is where myth and power fully merge. Rome had long connected itself to the divine through story, through Aeneas, through Venus herself. But now, for the first time, a political leader entered that divine lineage in real time. Caesar was no longer just descended from the gods. He had become one. This transformation introduced a concept that would define Roman power for centuries: apotheosis, the process by which a human being is elevated to divine status after death. Rome had seen this idea before in the story of Romulus, but with Caesar, it moved from myth into political reality. From this point forward, the spirit of Rome's rulers could be elevated, transformed into something more than human. Through ritual, public ceremony, and the authority of the Senate, emperors were not only remembered, they were deified. This reshaped Roman authority entirely. Because if Caesar was divine, then his heir, Augustus, could claim something unprecedented, not just power, but sacred legitimacy as the son of a god. But in this moment, with Caesar, the shift is complete. Power is no longer justified only by law, tradition, or ancestry. It is written in the heavens and built into the very stones of Rome. But Caesar's story does not end with his death. It continues through the man who would claim his name, his legacy, and now his divinity. If Julius Caesar broke the Republic, his heir would rebuild Rome, not by rejecting power, but by redefining it. After decades of civil war, Rome was exhausted, fractured, and uncertain. Augustus understood that force alone could not sustain rule. Power had to be justified, visibly, culturally, and spiritually. He famously declared that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. And this was not just architecture, it was ideology made visible. Temples rose, monuments multiplied, and the city itself became a reflection of order, permanence, and divine favor. Rome was no longer simply governed, it was staged. This transformation of power into image, of authority into something almost timeless, can be seen most clearly in one of the most iconic works of Roman art, the Augustus of Prima Porta, discovered in 1863 at the villa of Augustus's wife, Livia, and now housed in the Musei Vaticani. Carved in marble, the statue presents Augustus, not as he was, but as he wished to be remembered. His body is idealized, youthful, balanced, untouched by age or imperfection. He stands in contrapposto, echoing the classical forms of ancient Greek sculpture, aligning himself with a visual language of harmony and perfection. His right arm is extended in a gesture of command, not aggressive but controlled, addressing the people, the army, and the state. His face is calm, composed, almost distant. There is no strain, no uncertainty, only a sense of inevitability. He does not appear as a man reacting to events, but as a figure already aligned with them. And then, in the smallest detail, the greatest claim is made. At his feet, Cupid rides upon a dolphin, a subtle yet powerful reference to Venus. Through Aeneas, Augustus traces his lineage back to the goddess herself. In this quiet detail, myth becomes visible. He is not simply a ruler, he is the continuation of a divine line. Even the breastplate tells a story. At its center, a Roman standard is returned by a foreign power, symbolizing restored honor and diplomatic victory. Surrounding this scene are gods and cosmic forces, the sky, the earth, the sun, arranged in harmony. The message is unmistakable. Under Augustus, Rome is not only politically stable, it is cosmically aligned. This statue does not show Augustus the man. It shows Augustus the idea. A ruler without age. A leader without conflict. A figure balanced between human and divine. But Augustus did not present himself as a king. Instead, he restored the language of the Republic, reviving offices, rituals, and traditions that suggested power still belonged to the people. In reality, authority remained firmly in his hands. This balance between appearance and control was his greatest achievement. At the center of this system was pietas. Augustus cast himself as the perfect Roman, disciplined, dutiful, and aligned with the gods. He repaired temples, revived religious practices, and positioned himself as the guardian of Rome's moral and spiritual order. In doing so, he transformed pietas from a personal virtue into political identity. And then he anchored that identity in myth. As the adopted son of Caesar, now worshipped as Divus Julius, Augustus claimed the title Divi Filius, son of a god. Through this claim, he traced his lineage back to Aeneas, and through Aeneas to Venus herself. This was not simply ancestry, it was destiny. This ideology is made visible in one of the most important monuments of the Augustan age, Lara Pacis, dedicated in 9 BCE and now housed in the Museo de Lara Pacis. Here, Augustus appears not as a conqueror, but as a bringer of peace. The reliefs depict a procession of priests, family members, and officials moving together in harmony. There is no chaos, no violence, only order, continuity, and ritual. Other panels show fertility, abundance, and the natural world in balance. The message is clear. Under Augustus, Rome is aligned with nature, with tradition, and with the divine order that governs the world. This is pietas made visible at the level of the state. And so, something extraordinary happens. The system that once rejected kings now accepts a single ruler, but only because that ruler appears to embody pietas. Augustus does not rule through force alone. He rules through alignment, with tradition, with myth, and with the gods. And yet, even this carefully constructed system must face its final test, succession. When Augustus dies in 14 CE, he does not fall to violence, nor does his death plunge Rome into chaos. He dies at the age of 75, likely of natural causes, in the town of Nola. His passing is calm, controlled, fitting for a man who spent his life shaping not only power, but its appearance. According to tradition, his final words reflect that awareness. If I have played my part well, applaud as I exit. Even in death, Augustus understands himself as part of a larger performance, one in which Rome, its history, and its destiny are carefully constructed. And then, the true measure of his success is revealed. The system holds. Power passes to Tiberius, not through revolution, but through succession. The Republic is not restored. Instead, Augustus's model continues, marking the beginning of a new political reality. Empire without kings. Rule without the name of monarchy. Like Caesar before him, Augustus is declared a god, Divus Augustus. He is laid to rest in the Mausoleo di Augusto, the mausoleum of Augustus. But his presence does not fade. It expands, becoming part of Rome's religious and political fabric. In this final act, Augustus completes what Caesar began. Power is no longer something that must justify itself. It has become something natural, continuous, inherited, and sanctified. Rome did not believe that it built itself. It believed that it was chosen. From the journey of Aeneas, guided by the will of the gods, to a lineage that stretched across centuries, to rulers who claimed descent from Venus and Mars, Rome told a story in which its power was not accidental, but destined. At the heart of that belief was pietas, the discipline of placing duty above self, and the ideal of the pious individual, one who sacrifices personal desire for family, for the state, and for something greater than both. This was not simply a virtue, it was a way of understanding the world. To act with duty was to act in alignment with a higher order, to move in harmony with the divine forces that shaped existence itself. And through that belief, Rome did something extraordinary. It transformed power into purpose. It turned conquest into responsibility. It gave meaning to sacrifice, not as loss, but as participation in something larger than the individual. But perhaps the most powerful idea Rome left behind is this: what if it was right? What if its rise was not simply the result of strategy, or geography, or force, but something more? What if the story Rome told about itself, that it was guided, protected, even descended from the gods, was not just a myth, but a way of understanding its place in the world? From Romulus, said to be the son of Mars, to Augustus, the son of a god, Rome consistently framed its leaders not just as rulers, but as part of a divine continuum. A people born from war and love, from Mars and Venus, from destruction and renewal. In that vision, Rome was never just a city. It was an idea. A belief that power could be justified through duty, that leadership required sacrifice, and that history itself could be shaped by alignment with something greater than human will. And that is why Rome endures, not only in ruins or in ancient texts, or in monuments, but in the idea that greatness is not simply taken. It is earned, carried, and perhaps given. And in that belief, it built something extraordinary. Not just an empire, but a legacy of responsibility, discipline, and continuity. a city that has endured in spirit, in history, and in identity, and one that was, and perhaps still is, destined to be the greatest the world has ever known.